the Architectural Board of Review meeting for January 22nd, 2024. May we start with roll call?
Yes, thank you, Staff Member Russell. I will proceed with roll call. Board Member Anderson?
Here.
Board Member Black?
Here.
Board Member Noon?
Here.
Board Member Six?
Here.
Board Member Sovereign?
Here.
Board Member Whalen?
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
So first item on the agenda today for general business would be election of chair and vice chair. So I think, I don't know how we would like to do this, but we can go and pass a vote along. I don't know, maybe.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Russell. So the way that this works, and so many of you may not have experienced this before, but we take nominations, and you can have one nomination, you could have multiple nominations. So we take individual nominations, and then there will be a roll call vote on each of the nominations. So, and it's just simple majority of the, first we'll do chair, and then once a chair is established, then we will swap staff will no longer be running the meeting, and the chair will run the meeting, and then do nominations for vice chair. So at this time, would anybody wish to nominate a chair?
Yes, I would like to nominate Ms. Anderson.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, can we do roll call, please?
Yes. Okay. Roll call. Chair Anderson?
Yes.
She wasn't
Board-
elected yet.
Just Board Member Anderson.
Just Board Member,
Be
okay.
careful here.
All right.
Sorry.
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Black?
Yes.
Board Member Noon?
Yes.
Board Member Six?
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign?
Yes.
Board Member Whalen?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, then I would like to pass it off to Chair Anderson. If you would open it up to nominations for vice chair.
All right, let's open up for a nomination for vice chair, and I'd like to nominate Mr. Whalen.
Second.
I accept.
Okay,
And we'll still need to do a roll call vote.
all right,
Just accept the nomination.
all right. Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
Board Member Whalen.
Abstain.
Motion passes.
You have to change seats.
Oh, do I need to?
It's as you wish. We can make it official next time. I will, if
Is that
you
better
like the
for you
chair,
guys?
go for it.
Okay. All right, let's open up item B for appointment of consent review representatives and subcommittees. And I think we had our calendar from last year that we can look at.
Yes. Thank you, Chair
And we-
Anderson.
Need to adjust that a little bit.
So we did it in 2-month intervals. Obviously, there are different people associated with this review schedule now.
So Mr. Sovereign, Board Member Sovereign could be in Chair Moore's place. And then we can go through and see if those months are good for each of us. So Board Member Sovereign, would that work? January, February, July, August?
I think it should work.
Okay.
I definitely don't have a couple conflicts here or there, but I'm sure we can figure that out.
Okay.
Close enough.
And Ms. Vice Chair Whalen?
Yes, those dates are fine with me.
Okay, and then I'll need to switch September and October with someone. So we'll keep that on the radar. And then Mr. Noon,
Yes.
and Board Member Six,
Yes.
and Board Member Black.
Yes.
Okay, so we can do that offline, like through emails.
Yes, Chair Anderson, so we certainly can do that via email, and I just would like to remind board members that if there's a conflict, the sooner we know, the better. Sometimes you might get an agenda item, and there could be a conflict of interest. That would be another situation where you just try to reach out, and we'll try to find a replacement for you. But we'll, if there's any other changes, I think we can do that outside of the meeting.
Okay, great.
And just point of information, typically, if I see a landscape issue, then I would typically attend. So that's what I've been doing, so.
Oh,
For the
one
record.
other thing to note to the board, that for the spring recruitment, reaching out to people to get applications in, and that person, maybe once they get their feet wet a little bit more, would also, could be part of the rotation and alleviate some of the maybe scheduling.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to item C, public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on today's agenda.
Okay, I will begin with public comment. Thank you, Chair Anderson. At this time, I do not have any slips. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they could fill out a slip and bring it to me. I do not see anyone in the audience at this time, so we will move on to virtual comment. And I do not see any hands raised for virtual comment, so we will move on to correspondence, and we did not have any general correspondence, so I will turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the approval of the minutes from the meeting on January 8th, the full board meeting. There's just one item. All right. I'll move we accept the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Okay, we will take a vote on this. Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes?
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen.
Abstain.
Motion passes.
Great. Let's move on to item E, the approval of consent calendar for today, the 22nd.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. We had one item today. 329 Alameda Padre Serra was here for project design and final approval. This was the same project under a different planning record. It had received ABR project design approval in the past. And today it matched those plans, and project design approval and final approval was granted.
Yes, I move we accept these minutes.
Second.
All right, we will take a vote on that. Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes?
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. All right, let's move on to any announcements, requests by applicants, future agenda items, and appeals. Anything from staff?
Yes, Chair Anderson, board members, just a couple of things. I know Board Member Whalen was out. I just want to introduce our newest staff member, Carly Ernest, who is going to be taking over as the liaison to the ABR. So Ms. Ernest is still training and will be taking the reins just pretty soon. But if you have any questions that come up, you can, in the meantime, just reach out to both Will and Carly, and we've kind of been copying everybody. Something else I want to, just now that we've established the chair and vice chair, I would like to set up, doesn't have to be super long, but I'd like to set up a meeting with you just to kind of get a fresh start to the new year, and kind of we can talk about roles or answer any questions that you might have, and go through kind of just different expectations or different things coming up. And then I do know that staff have an announcement about a project.
Thank you. Today, we needed to postpone item 3, 523 West Gutierrez Street. This will be postponed to a date certain of February 5th, full board ABR review. So item 3 will not be heard on today's agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sure. And that is a good point. So item 4, the earliest that item can start could be 5:05 PM, which would be 15 minutes before its scheduled time. So just want to make that aware for the members of the public as well. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any subcommittee reports? We did not vote on the subcommittees today, so maybe we can do that next time? Or,
I don't think I have a list of the subcommittees to vote on. So
Okay.
I think next full board hearing, we can cover that item.
okay, sounds good. All right, well, let's open up the first item, which is 425 Garden Street. They're here for final approval. The project consists of demolition of all on-site structures and construction of a 4-story, 36-unit residential complex with common rooftop amenities. The project proposes 2 moderate income rental units, 4 very low income, and 30 market rate rental units. No parking is proposed. Consistent with the AUD ordinance, the project is proposed at a density of 94.74 units per acre. Final approval is requested, requires compliance with the plans granted PDA on January 23rd of 2023, exactly a year ago. Anything from staff before we jump in? Okay. And do we have the previous minutes to look at? Possibly? Do we have the minutes by chance? Okay, sorry, 1 minute.
These are the previous minutes from the last hearing on January 23rd, 2023.
Okay. All right, everyone have a chance? Okay, well, welcome back. If you could just introduce yourself. You're here for final approval, so if you want to walk us through any major changes that took place since the last time, and then we'll be interested in all the details that we didn't see last time. And you'll have 15 minutes, and if we need further time, we can maybe do that during questions, so, go ahead.
Okay, Greg Wrights with the project applicant, and just real quickly, you may recall that I had a different architect for the conceptual design, and Eris has been on board to develop the plan since then. So Sean can tell you what changes have been made and why, but I think it largely remains the same.
Sean Ridenauer with Air Studio Architects, a project architect. Thank you for having us, and I'd like to go through. We'll start with the comments from the previous meeting. Try to address those as best we can. First comment, significant landscaping. I think if you go to page 63 on the PDF, it's all the way down. We've increased the planting right in front of the bike room to accommodate a few tall palms there to give it a little relief. You can see there's there's actually 3 palms in the front. Previously, there was an entrance to the bike room. We could share that as one of the part of the changes, but we lost that entrance because of the grade difference between the front and when we get to the courtyard. It just made it difficult. We'd lose a lot of bike area in the room to provide a little ramp there. So that's the first comment there on the landscaping. And then and we get to some of the verbal comments that weren't in the official meetings. there was a discussion about the transformer. So the transformer is moved from the back corner after a few discussions with SCE and our utility consultant. So it's going to sit right behind the screen wall there. If you go to the elevations, if you could go to page 12, I think it's pretty far back. Go on the front elevation. So there's an access gate, the man door closer to the building, and then there's an access gate for the transformer will be right behind there. So SE can access it, and a couple bollards in front of that. The next comment was regarding the landscape again, so we went over that. There was glass block on the east or the west side, so next page. This was on the go back to the overall elevation. So the tower, the blank spot right there, there was glass block in that stair tower and asked to remove it. And it didn't make sense to put in windows either. They're not utilized very much in the stair tower. So we thought having a blank wall would kind of help define that elevation since all the other facade have windows in them. So, next one was the trim band at the second floor level was fairly pronounced before. So we reduced the thickness to be a little more in proportion to the floor and also where it aligned with the bottom of that, any of the cantilevers that happened at that transition. So, and then along that, there was comments about the columns.
Can you point to the elevation where
Yes.
what you're talking about?
There's a mouse too, if that makes it easier.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so this trim band here was a lot thicker, and it was also higher than where we had openings or cantilevers over here. So on this side, there's a cantilever here, so that there was a space between that trim band and the cantilever. And then the next was the eave treatment at the elevator tower. So it had a different treatment than the rest of the building, or where we have the tile roof. So we matched that treatment to the rest of the building. At the front elevation, we had different head heights from the windows on the side where the bike room is, compared to where we have the lobby. So the lobby and all the units are at the flood elevation, and these spaces are down lower. So we were able to make them match as the height of those at the bike room, and the trash enclosure aren't as critical as the lobby. So, and then up back to the columns. We added some capitals and some bases to those columns to bring them down to make it feel like they're supporting the building, but previously they didn't. And then on the rear elevation, was a request to study the trim bands. Sorry. So what we did was we took some of the ones from the front and at different masses, changed the relief, the profile on those. So where it's recessed, it's a smaller profile, and a larger profile where it's more pronounced. The other comment was regarding looking at additional color. So there's two primary colors for the building. So The secondary color is a little less pronounced on the front. And then where we wrap around the sides, we have some more massing to kind of break down the mass with a little change in color. So if we go to the colored elevation, you can see. So it's just a couple of shades of a different white on there, a little warmer color just to break up that elevation. And then a couple of minor changes with our electrical room. We had to add a small landing and a few steps because it had to be at the higher elevation above the floodplain. So it's right here. And that'll just have a little wrought iron railing there. We did add a small roof covering at this stair 1 exit. So that's here. And so when the door comes out, there's a little projection for some weather coverage. And there's a ramp that brings us down to grade. And we looked at modifying some of the actual layouts of the units, and that did affect some of the patios on the ground level. So those configurations changed slightly, but they still, for the most part, had the patios and little planters adjacent to them. That. Any other comments? That's.
Maybe you can run through some of your detailing. So we want to see like the roof detailing, all your different trim band sections. If you have your final material board and any lighting, final lighting specs.
So let's start with material board. Quick. Oops.
I think the zoom button's down at the bottom, so if you hover towards.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks.
Sorry. You click on it.
It got moved for the meeting.
It's all right. All right. So, two primary plaster. One's a pretty bright white, a little off-white, and a little darker integral color. Two-piece mission. It's called Tuscany. So a little more towards the red. Aluminum clad windows, a bronze color, black wrought iron for most of the detailings. These are the two primary light fixtures on the exterior, a larger one at the primary entries, and then these smaller ones are at our unit balconies and any secondary walkways. Whoops. For the little exposed wood we have on the side, we have the stained wood. A breeze block detail at the trash enclosure here. And then aluminum painted dark bronze gutters and downspouts, and then a decorative tile at the recess up here on the elevator. And then for the awnings that are on the side upper balconies, burgundy awning, fabric awning. So those are the primary colors. If we go, let's see. We can start with the windows, recessed windows, and then we have a sloped recess at a few of the ones on the front elevation, on the lower floor. Typical eave detail, the small overhang with a corbel there. At the mansards, we have, the primary condition is just a mansard with a tile top. We do have a couple higher ones at the back. One other change we did make that I didn't mention is there's a screen wall or a screen parapet that supports the condensing units on the roof. So it's there's a screen here, and then they are supported by that screen wall on the back side. I can show you a detail of that, just because they're would be a little more prominent and with the lower parapets where we don't have the mansard roof. And that would be a plastered. That's this detail here. So just a steel supported two-sided plaster, and then the condensing units are mounted. That makes the waterproofing a lot easier.
Any other important details that you feel like we should see?
We can show you the railing details. Just a standard thin plaster. So these are at the east and west cantilevered balconies. We've got a profile, a raised sill for the balconies. That's I think it's a 12 inches typical there. On the east side, we do have a foam shape for the large cantilevered balconies. And then our typical Juliets.
Okay.
The majority of our railings are standard, and then we have a few decorative ones with the heart shape there.
Okay.
So,
Okay, great. Does that conclude your presentation?
yes, it does.
Okay. We'll open up public comment for this item. So if anyone would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I have no slips, but as a reminder, if anyone wishes to speak, they can please fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience making a move to do so, so I will move on to virtual comment. At this time, I see no hands raised for virtual comment, so we will move on to correspondence, which we did not receive for this particular item. So I will turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll open up questions from board members, and we can start with board member 6.
Yes, thank you, Chair Anderson. I will very much discipline my questions to things that have changed. You were right on page A10.09 on the balconies. It seems to me, yeah, just a little bit. And I noticed this on the main elevations and so forth. I remember it was a consensus of the board to try to get those extended balconies as thin as possible in height around the sides and end. And I'm noticing now that they're even deeper because of this raised curb. I'm wondering if the reason, okay, it's questions. I'm wondering the reason for that curb rather than just spilling off the side with a gutter or radically reducing the height of that curb to thin up those heavy balconies, which, as I said, was previously a concern of the board.
I didn't see that comment previously.
Okay.
So,
Was that,
it's-
am I mistaken? Was that not a consensus, or that was just me?
I guess, can you just address this question on what's the reason for the curb?
Yes, let's do that first.
It does provide a little bit of privacy for those units on their decks, if they have any furnishing or anything, it does cover that. We see no issue in reducing them, but it does maintain and help allow control of the water without having to run it over.
But it could be
so.
reduced without any functional hang-ups or
Correct.
pain. all
Yes.
right? If we go to the overall elevations, the vents that we see throughout the elevations, those are mechanical breathers and so forth for the interior of the units. Are those flush mounted with the
Yeah,
with the
right
plaster?
now we have them flush mounted, so there's either a few single or they're grouped together. So a lot of times we do try to group them as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
If the exhaust, so they're a prefabricated
And they're flush with the wall?
louver,
Okay.
yeah. And
Yes.
they're painted to match the
Painted
adjacent
to
surface.
match. And those are also, what are the reasons for the great amount and size of the ones at the very low, below the first wainscot? at the
These right
grade?
here?
Yes.
These are for the flood zone.
Flood.
Yeah, that's
So you're
the bike room here and then the trash room. So in
Ah,
order
so
to
you
let
have-
the water free flow in the event of a flood.
I get it.
All
Okay.
the other units are,
Mechanical.
or all the units and residential spaces are above the flood zone.
Okay.
So it's only this side here.
And I noticed, and I don't remember if this was an issue specific to this project and whether the board was unanimous about it, but I noticed that I thought that we do, and on this project also, try to get rid of all of the horizontal and vertical stucco expansion joints, and I noticed that those are recurring on this project again. Did we not comment on that, and did we not want them away, and did they go and then reoccur?
We try to minimize them as much as possible, but realizing that the buildings do move and expand and crack, we want to minimize it.
Then my question is, what's different about this building than other typical buildings of this style throughout the city of this size that don't, the architect seems to be comfortable without any expansion joints?
It's a lot of times preference and just what you've seen over time
Okay.
and construction methods.
All right, so then on your details, I noticed that there was one non-recessed window, the storefront, where the aluminum storefront windows are non-recessed. This would be a detail F4 on A10
That's,
0.06?
it's only a condition on the interior entry.
Okay,
Yeah, it's the lobby door from the corridor.
okay. So it's not on the exterior?
Not from, all the storefronts and the windows on the exterior elevations we recessed.
Okay. I don't know whether these were discussed or on the previous plans, but I find how can I pose this a question? The backflow, first of all, where are the fire double check valve located, and also the landscape double backflow preventers?
So the main backflow preventer is here, just to the,
Those are the landscape.
this is the fire, and this is the
Double check valve?
landscape. Yeah. So the larger one here is the fire, and this one's the landscape. I have over 2 meters in the front here.
Did you explore a better place? You said that you eliminated the doorway to the bike. Is that recess not a better place to put
We
that?
do have the storm drain system chamber where it exits here, so in the courtyard,
I get it.
we have the storm drain, so this is here. We do have a little more landscaping available on this side,
Mm-hmm.
and it probably wouldn't be too much of an issue to relocate it to the
Okay.
other side.
Very good. And then I'm having a little bit of difficulty understanding the new home of the transformer. Can you go to, let's see, the front elevation, maybe the blow-up? It occurs to me, and can you tell me the reason? That's the side elevation. Front elevation, where we see that scalloped wall. Yes, up there. Why are we putting the transformer behind a wrought iron gate so you see it? Is that wrought iron right there?
It is.
And is there a functional restriction that prevents that from being an opaque gate?
There's not. We'd have to verify with the SCE if there's an issue with them not being able to see it.
Sure.
But
Okay.
it could be a solid.
All right. And then as we turn, and then if we go to let me see, let's go to the overall elevation. I know there's two K-12s, but it's a K-12 overall. And zoom in that transformer area. Yeah, just pull over to the, so if I understand this right, this wall that surrounds the gate in front just ends at a skinny wall, and it's above the Office Max's wall, correct? Is there any way to return that and make it more hefty than just having this thin wall sticking out there?
We could explore that.
Okay.
Yeah, you mean the termination at that wall
Yeah.
where
just-
the two meet?
Yeah. And there, I'm confused, if we go to the roof plan, I think if you flip back from the roof plan to the front elevation, yeah, zoom into your only gable element in the front of the elevation. Can you zoom way up? Yeah, right there. Way zoom, way zoom. So I think there's a confusion there. On our left, on our left-hand side, well, first of all, I think the tiles, your poché of those tiles are running, poché, an old word, are running the wrong way.
Yeah, I see that.
And then, especially is significant when it runs down the left-hand side of that, there would be no peak, no ridge at that left-hand, what is a valley. No, the middle, at the diagonal of the sheet, right?
This one?
Yes, so that one going up would not be anything. It would be just a continuation of that slope. I just mentioned this, it's not, it's a graphic thing that can be corrected, but what it does, it lends to an awkward, I think, an awkward pileup of moldings and so forth at that very left-hand corner. And it just really, I think you should, right there, yeah. It just, it comes out and then sticks out even further. And there's just something that could be radically simplified there, that maybe the molding just dies flat into the return wall, or it comes out to the face of the gable and just simply dies with the flat of the surface of the gable itself. Something has, I think, something has to happen there to ease or figure out something less complicated and awkward than that. That was more, I'm sorry, I drifted into comments. My last question would be, on the northern property line, the site plans say that the existing fence is to remain. Now, if I look at the photos, it's kind of a haphazard chain link. My first question is, do you not have a lot of grade change along that north property line that would necessitate the removal and reconstruction of that fence?
No, I believe the intention is to put a new fence along.
On the left-hand side, up inside, yeah, against your neighbors. It says existing fence to remain, and it's kind of, is it yours or theirs, or?
I think it's on this property, and I don't think that there's a significant grade change between the two.
Okay. So your intent is to keep that as is?
The intent, I think, was to, probably grow some vines on it.
Okay, and that brings up, what is the, again, poché of the pattern along the mid property line, or mid depth of the property? There's a kind of a herringbone pattern. What is that? Is that planting or?
On our property?
On your property, yeah. Is that hardscape? Yeah, there.
This one?
All the way down.
This
Yeah.
is a permeable paver,
Oh,
and then we transition to a low, just landscape.
Landscape,
Yeah.
okay. And the paving is required because it can't be planting?
This could be planting, we're looking at the storm drain options if that's required or not, but it can be planting from here down and here down as well.
Wouldn't that be planting to maximize the planting as our first comment to our comments last time?
I think that was towards, just at the front, along Garden Street was the comment.
Okay.
But the previous design had permeable pavers all the way around the whole back.
Okay. Are there any opportunity to put vertical palm tree? Is there any reason that you couldn't travel? Is there a restriction to, do you have to travel along that path? Can you put palm trees and so forth in that area?
Just, it'd be secondary egress, emergency egress.
From
So
where?
we do have, I think, 2 trees in the back corners.
So it is an egress. I don't see where it's egress.
It would be an emergency secondary. Our primary egress is out of the corridors from the units, but in the case they,
Well, okay. I don't see where it's going or coming from, but those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Board Member Six. Vice Chair Whalen, do you have any questions?
Thank you, newly appointed Chair Anderson. Just 2 questions. Could you zoom in on the courtyard and perhaps on the landscape plan and point out what is hardscape and what is planting area and how that has changed from the previous iteration?
the only major change to the courtyard is just the configuration. We have a little bit higher of a level because we're coming off the higher floodplain for the units, and then a ramp down to a lower courtyard. But all of this will be permeable paver, and this, we have a storm drain system all within the courtyard. And then a higher landscape planter in the center, lower planting along the sides. These are 2 private patios to these 2 units. And then we have an access from the corridor here.
Are the private patios a change? I don't recall those.
They were always in there, yeah.
My next and last question has to do with the location of the transformer, and I believe Mr. Six had identified it on K12. If you could go to that detail, or want to take a second look at just where it is. This was an elevation, K12.
elevation.
I understand it there. Is-
From Garden Street.
It would be, I would call it the southern
Side.
elevation. Yes, there it is. If you could zoom in on that. Where does the transformer fall in that image? And what are the horizontal rectangles just on the inboard side of the fence? Yeah. What are,
I think these are shadows
No.
coming through.
The horizontal rectangle.
This right here?
Yes, those.
This is actually the pad, so this should show as solid.
So
So the
the-
transformer has to set,
And so the transporter sits on that to some height.
sits, yeah, at the flood
And
flood
they're
design.
36 inches or
Correct.
4 feet or something like that.
Yeah, so it's about, I think 18 to 24 inches above the grade, adjacent grade there.
So a total height for the transformer and the pad would be somewhere around 5 feet?
Probably.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Anderson.
Board Member Black, do you have any questions?
I do. Could you go to the colored elevation of the front of the building? So the comments that we offered last time had to do with providing more vertical massing landscape-wise. And I know you came back and said, we've added 3 palm trees. I'm not convinced that is adequate. If you scroll back, I mean, you've got some massing there in the center, but to the left and right of the, there's nothing. You know, it just seems like a lot of 4-story building without any vertical massing in front of it. And I'm just wondering whether there's opportunities to add to what you've shown here. I'm assuming that rendering reflects your landscape plan. I see.
Yeah, the only difference is there's one more palm on this side.
Okay, fine.
These are in the.
Those are street
the
trees.
Street trees.
Right. So to the left and right of those street trees, I'm not totally clear in terms of how much planting space you have there, but my question would be, is there not any opportunities to provide more upright massings? Maybe some palms, but maybe some upright canopy trees, provide a little bit more massing. I have to say, I'm disappointed that you don't have a landscape architect here that I can ask these questions of. You know, it's, I know, probably a little bit more difficult for you than they would be, but, so adding 3 palm trees doesn't really cut it, for me anyway. But my question is, are there any opportunities? It seems like there's a planter there to the south, I guess, of the entry. And it might be a nice opportunity to, well, this is comments, I guess, but maybe palms in clusters rather than just 3 equi-spaced palm trees as you're showing them there.
Sean, if you could go back to the color elevation, and this may be something that you guys changed that I wasn't aware of, but we did have bougainvillea on the front left of this. You see where it's, yeah, that there. In our previous version, we had that growing further up, all the way up to the first balcony there. We were committed to getting a large specimen that we could
Train.
train so that it would be a full height from day one. So I don't know if you have any issue
No, I
with
think
that.
it just doesn't show, full height, all these are.
Okay, that said, but I guess my question goes back to, are there not opportunities in those areas where you don't show trees in the front to provide some in addition to what you're showing today? That's my first question,
Yeah, that'd be more question for our landscape architect to see what we can fit there.
if they were here.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the rear of the building, I couldn't help but notice that all those units have no view except the broad expanse of the Office Max roof. And there's no landscape back there except some low ground cover, which no one's going to see, of course. And so when Mr. Six brought up the notion about some additional landscape, I couldn't help but wonder whether or not, if you're looking at the rear elevation, whether or not there's an opportunity for some verticality there. Maybe not palm trees per se, but I've oftentimes used small eucalyptus. I don't know how much room you actually have back there. That was the question I had, but otherwise, even from the view from the Office Max parking lot, you're going to be looking up, and this building's going to be looming over Office Max on that west elevation. And, if there was some vertical green up against the building, I think that would contribute significantly to the visual appearance of the building. So my question is there an opportunity to provide some trees back there as well? I know you were discussing access and what have you, but
Yeah, I thought the problem was for fire, being able to get through back there. Is that not? the
Fire?
prob-
How much
fire
space-
access
how much
for a
space is
ladder.
there?
So we average about 5 to 6 feet, depending on where we're at, so.
yeah. I don't know what access the fire department requires per se, but I'm just talking about, I mean, if it was eucalyptus, you could squeeze some in there, but and they could get around it perhaps. I don't know. I'm asking the question, and that's why I wanted to ask the landscape architect that question as well. But I just think it would add considerably to the building. And, you know, just for those units as well, I mean, we're not, you know, if people are out looking through their windows and there's some greenery up where they are, I think that would improve the quality of life there and be of some benefit to everyone down on the ground looking back at this building, because it is gonna be quite visible, obviously. So, and then I couldn't help but notice too, you were asking, Mr. Six was asking about the backflow preventers and stuff. When I first looked at the plans, I thought I saw on the irrigation plan a note that says that the contractor is supposed to determine where those are in the field, which I thought was sort of interesting. But you showed a plan where you were specific.
Yeah, we
in
do
terms
have,
of the
we
flow.
do have them located
Okay.
right here at
Right.
this point, but.
I do think that the notion of moving it away from near the entrance, it would be of benefit. So, and there's got to be notes on the plans too, and I'm sure your landscape architect's aware of this, but notes that say all that's going to need to be screened by landscape, so. But again, I go back to that original question on your front elevation, you know, what opportunities are there for getting more verticality? I mean, that was part of our comments from the last meeting, so, and more than just 3 palms.
Okay.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Noon?
Just very quick, can you go to, I think it was an elevation sheet, A3.6? Just quickly, I believe it's the bottom detail. Yeah, zoom in right between the 2 section marks. That overhang, has that changed at all since we've seen this before?
Yes. This right here?
Yes.
There wasn't a pop-out here. We need some additional space to make the ramp work within that stairwell, since we're coming in from the higher elevation. So that's why we added the low roof here and overhang, and then there was no cover previously for that door.
And so you've got one brace on the left side?
Right, and there would be a beam across here, and then a brace.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Board Member Soffren?
No questions.
Okay, I just have a couple follow-up questions. So on the site plan, I'm still back at this transformer. I think my concern too would be visibility from the bedroom. And do you have any plans for a fence on the inside or any kind of barrier between the transformer and that bedroom?
No, we don't have anything proposed for a screen there.
Okay, and then following up with the permeable paving, I think the question is the secondary egress required? So are we required to have that permeable paving pathways on the sides of the building?
It's not required.
It's not required? Okay, so there's opportunity to replace that with landscape?
Correct.
Okay. And I back to Board Member Six's question about the balconies. I think you were right, we did talk about reducing the thickness, and they did get thicker, so we'll come back to that. But, okay, I think those are my only questions. Does anyone have any follow-up questions on that? Okay, otherwise we will, oh, go ahead.
Madam Chair, has it been verified that the transformer can be right at the property line?
The dry utility consultant submitted these plans to SCE, and they were okay with them as this.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. And have you verified that the palm trees that you are introducing on the front are not in conflict with those heavy, mature existing trees? I mean, they're rendered pretty light on your elevations, but that's the question. Has it been verified that those are not in conflict?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, let's move into comments. Let's start down here. Board Member Sofferin, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay, Board Member Noon?
I would, I guess, follow up on Board Member Six's comment, just maybe again verifying that transformer. I've dealt with SEE, and there's a 3-foot clearance from the pad all the way around, and I don't know that, it appears maybe you don't have that.
The way it was explained to me was, sorry, I didn't know it's not a question, but the way it was explained to me is that, yes, typically you have 3 feet clear, but they sometimes allow it offset within that. So you could have 6 feet on this side and 0 on this side. So that's what we proposed. Maybe they'll have us push it back a little bit, but.
Any other comments?
That was my only comment.
Board Member Black?
I think from my round of questions that, my comments would sort of follow in the same line, that to me, in my mind, the opportunity for more vertical landscape massing should be explored. And I would really appreciate if, when you come in again, that your landscape architect be here as well. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Whalen?
No questions, Chair Anderson.
Comments? Okay. All right. Board Member Six?
I have a few. I would like to see you minimize the height of the standing curb at your north and south elevation, cantilever balconies to an absolute minimum, and get it back at least to the depth of what we approved in the preliminaries. I think that it's very unfortunate that we have, even though they're painted out, that we have utilitarian vents, and especially the big vents at the what do you call it, the flood functions. I think that those, at least those, should be have a decorative feature to them and be more traditional in proportion. I would hope that it wouldn't be too much of a expense to have, even on all of the utilitarian vents, to have them have a perforated metal of some sort in front of those to paint out and be more decorative. I think that we should eliminate the plaster joints throughout. I think that you should resolve the confused roof plan at the north gable and reduce the bulkiness of that corner and the way the molding wraps around that corner. Being that they're new, the bases at the front expressed columns, those should be raised at least to the to the wainscot. Do you need to have an explanation of that? Do you want to?
I'll pull it up just so we can make sure we understand.
Yes, have those go up to your band.
The base.
Yeah, the base. Uh-huh. There are two places, this is the north elevation. Can we go up to the left-hand elevation of the north, of the front elevation? Next one. The left-hand side. Yeah, so there's three or four light fixtures that are extra high, one on the gable and then one on the big patio there. Those need to come down in conformance with the rest of the light fixtures throughout the building. And I think we've kind of made an issue of the potential. I think you should resolve and make certain the location of the transformer is correct and have a opaque a gate in front of it as opposed to a wrought iron. And I would, given the expenditures and so forth, I don't think it would be unreasonable burden to replace that fence along the northern property line with something that's more new and better suited. And I would confirm that the tall palms introduced do not conflict with the existing trees. And I understand, and I would also confirm with the fire department the width of access around the back of the building, and if possible, provide vertical plantings. And I think you can do it. I think there's some extra fat corners on the corners of that back access that are.
We do have 2 trees shown at the 2 corners.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe those are tall, maybe they're outrageous eucalyptus or whatever, if that's appropriate. And I think those are my comments.
I would just add to that, to provide a vertical landscape screen between the transformer and the bedroom. I think that would be appropriate. All right, so it sounds like we're gonna wanna see you one more time with your landscape architect. Board Member 6, would you like to make the motion and repeat everything you said?
Okay.
No, we can maybe watch the video, but yes, let's shoot for a motion.
Yeah, let's try for a motion. And I was taking down some notes so I can try to help too.
Okay, does this need to come back to full? Yes,
I think so.
I hear so. Okay. So an indefinite continuance back to the full board with the following comments. That the board appreciates the refinements made and mostly the conformance with the approved plans, preliminary design approved plans. Number 2 is to reduce the height and therefore apparent weight of the cantilevered balconies at north, was that east and west?
Correct.
East and west elevations. 3, to explore better, more decorative ways to handle the mechanical vents throughout the elevations, and especially the large vents for flood control at below the base at the north elevation. Number 4, to eliminate the plaster joints reoccurring in the plaster, both vertical and horizontal. Number 5, to resolve the confused roof plan at the north gable, and with the goal to reduce the pileup of moldings at that right-hand corner of the gable. To raise the base of the expressed columns of the north elevation up to at least to the level of the banding at the expressed base. To relocate, find a better position away from the front entry for the fire sprinkler double check and the landscape backflow preventer. To lower the light fixtures, 4 light fixtures on the north elevation, 1 above the opening of the gable and 1 in the large balcony to again review and verify the electrical transformer relationship to the property line, to provide a opaque gate from the transformer to the front, to the street, to provide screening between, interior screening from the transformer to the living windows in the building, and to, those are all one thing about the transformer. I hope we get that. They're not separate. When I say transformer, then those last 3 or 4 comments, okay? And to return the, or make more, return the wall end at the property line in front of the transformer. To replace and upgrade the north property line fence. To return with a landscape architect with resolutions to provide more significant vertical planting especially along the north property line, and if all possible along the sides and rear perimeters of the building as that do not conflict with fire department accessibility. I don't know whether I've forgotten anything.
I don't think so. I'll second that.
Okay, we will take a motion. Chair Anderson.
Do we need to read or read back or no? Okay.
We're good.
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen.
Yes, I'm in support of the motion.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
Board Member Six.
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are we doing okay to move on? Item 2 is 501 Garden Street. And this is here for project design approval. Are you all taking a break?
I need a break.
Okay, let's take a 2-minute recess, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Our meeting and go to item 2, 501 Garden Street. This is a continued item for project design approval. It's a proposal for a new 4-story mixed-use project using the AUD program. The project consists of removal of the existing storage containers and construction of a 13,820 square foot 4-story mixed-use building, including 7 rental apartments totaling 6,590 square feet, and 553 square feet of commercial retail space. Units range from 607 square feet to 1,104 square feet, with an average unit size of 941. The project includes 6 vehicle parking spaces and 8 bike parking spaces. Project design approval is requested, requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis, urban design guidelines, and the Haley-Milpas design guidelines. And we last saw you March of last year under a one-time pre-application consultation review. Okay, do we have anything from staff?
No additions from staff. The case planner for this project is not here today.
Okay.
So if there's questions, I might be able to answer them, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And then we do have the minutes and plans from the one-time application.
That would be helpful.
But if the board wishes to see those, we can, but it's not required, so.
Okay, does anyone need to see the minutes? If you reviewed them, it was each person had their own comments on there. Okay, well, if you guys want to introduce yourselves, welcome back and walk us through some updates from last time and where you're at.
Thank you, Madam Chair Anderson and fellow board members. On behalf of our client, Redbridge Capital, I'm Ed Devisane with DMHA Architecture.
Katie Klein, Perry I Landscape Architecture.
And Ryan Mills with DMHA.
All right, so since we last saw you, we've been working with all the departments from the pre-application just to get everything formalized, all the rules and regulations, pretty much working mostly with transportation, just in our garage design. So really, the project we have before you today, it really is not that different. It's very similar to what we presented to you last time. We'll walk through a couple of the minor changes, but for the most part, it's just getting everything into alignment with the rules and regulations. So in addition to the plans, we also have view simulations, 3 view simulations, one along Haley, 2 from either side of Garden Street, which integrates the landscape as well. So we'll save time for that too as we get to the end. This is our last piece. So with that, I'll let Ryan Mills take you through how we responded to the comments and any changes along the way.
Great. And Chair Anderson, we'll move through at a pretty decent clip. We'll spend about 5 minutes doing that. I want Katie to have 5 minutes, and then the Sims a few minutes, and then we'll circle back around. So I think we got it. So I'll cover it. We wrote all the board comments down and kind of organized them so we can move through the set, and hopefully we'll capture them all. You know, one big reminder for our team was just that I think fairly unanimously the board found the mass bulk and scale acceptable, so we stuck with that. But we'll talk about more of the refinements of the facades in a minute. So let's start with the site, or let's go to the first floor plan. Here I'll capture a handful of the board's comments from last time, a little more programmatically first. So some of the comments were, I believe Chair Moore mentioned the commercial size was maybe undersized, commercial space was undersized, not as viable as it could be or as pronounced. Bike room was a conversation, and bike access out and some of how that worked. So we actually reshuffled a few things as we refined. So as we developed the site a little bit more, we had to adjust the entry vestibule. So because of heights, and ramping, we had to kind of push the entry vestibule in off of Garden a little bit. So it's tucked in. You can kind of see the entry glass and door in a little bit. And then beyond that is a new mail room before you transition to a much smaller lobby. So we reduced that lobby space. And the other big moves were originally on that top left corner where it's now a commercial restroom. That was the bike room with its own way out. Now the bike has shifted over between the lobby and the trash room, which connects to the path of egress out through the garage. And then we did that because we enlarged the commercial, kind of maximized the amount of commercial space we could, and included that bathroom. If you recall, the bathroom used to be floating kind of in the middle of the lobby to separate from the commercial space. So that reorganizing, we maximized things, and we're feeling pretty good about that. So now only commercial addresses Haley. So we maintained the main opening there, kind of the front door to the business, and a secondary door, which could be a window, but we liked how it looked on the facade to be a door. It could be fixed or operable, but that was the main change. And then let's pan to the right. The other changes on the site plan were, you'll see, so our transformer that took the most meetings in the last several months, and to our understanding is it can't be in the setback, so we've worked very hard to push it out of the setback and have the space around it and do some screening to it. So that's where we've landed with ours. Previously it was sitting out closer to the sidewalk. And then again, parking, we were not able to make lifts work in our constrained garage with transportation. Got really close, but just couldn't get there. So there's reduced parking, and then utility and electrical rooms grew a little bit because of that. And of course, the egress out, down along the alleyway. Okay, so let's go to, I think that's it on the site. Oh, one last thing. So along the site, so in some of this massaging, we actually were able to, we pushed the entire Garden Street facade, kind of from the garage all the way to the alley, back about 12 to 14 inches. So we pushed it away from the street a little bit. So now let's go to, one last thing. Garage gate. So Mr. Six, we too thought that was a great idea, worked with transportation, pushed, but we are not allowed to have a gate in that location. Okay, so now let's go to the Garden Street elevation. So as Ed mentioned, generally, the architectural language has remained. We went back and based on, the board was a little split, but we felt like leaned towards what we were favoring was kind of a different language on the fourth floor. I think Mr. Whelan was abusivo. Is that what you gave me? Yeah. So we went back and looked at that. So we're still maintaining that we like the counterpoint. So you'll see in the Sims, largely that fourth floor goes away. We like that it's a darker, richer material that recedes. You'll see in the elevations, another comment was pulling back the deep eaves. We did that in many places as we move around. We left, it doesn't show here, but on this Garden Street elevation, because it's mostly morning light, we've pushed it back. We've given it a little bit of an overhang for the operable doors. And then on the right, you see the alley. We've pulled that back as well where we didn't really need it. And then on the, the south side there, over the outdoor space, we allowed for the eaves to remain deeper on this side and then in the back where there's circulation. A couple other quick things. Main changes are we've always had the stone base along the building perimeter, but now at that garage, that kind of middle facade component, we've brought it all the way up to that second floor plate, kind of like a bigger plinth element. It's interrupted by that little two-story element and then continues to the corner, down the alley and around, which we'll see in some of the additional elevations. There's a few more fenestration refinements in the middle where you see those couple palm trees. We had a much larger opening that we felt competed with the front door, so we just allowed those to be simpler. And let's see, I think that covers those comments for this elevation. Mr. Six, I don't know why I want to call you Chair Six, but Mr. Six, another comment you had was referring to studying the possibility of more two-story elements, especially on Garden. That was on the tape. Why we have the one and we stuck with that, and we think it's an appropriate stepping. We looked at, can we break this up even more and step at second floor, third floor, and fourth floor? We thought that was fussy, but we do want to show you in the Sims that we think it actually works with the pattern next to SB Cast. So we'll show you that in a minute. Let's go to the next elevation. I'm probably going too long here. Haley Street elevation, again, highlighting the commercial entry in that two-story volume. To the left of that, you see that entry door. It was asymmetrical before. We've aligned it, so we've kept the rest of the fenestration quite simple. We considered moving massing from the left corner to the corner of Haley. That was one of the board's comments. Do we carve out somewhere else? But again, based on, if you've looked at both sets, the earlier inspirational imagery, both traditional and even contemporary, we really like the idea of the simplicity, kind of honesty of this apartment building being 3 stories on a facade around the corner. So left the balcony, the stair tower steps back, and we added a trellis to shade and soften that a little bit. Next elevation. So this is the rear elevation, I guess, opposite Garden. So this time we're showing the cottages. For context, we're showing some neighboring buildings. That's the cottage along Haley, and then that's a storage shed on the property adjacent. So you can see the stone base turns the corner, and then playing with fenestration, both real in that middle facade and then a little more playfully with faux fenestration in these two, kind of the flanking facades. Let's go to next sheet. And we have both rendered, and then below everyone is a Revit elevation with a little more info if there's questions. And then the alley elevation. So there's the plinth turning the corner. We have on that second level, we're showing a true window into that studio, and then 3 faux windows on the 3rd floor. That's our stair circulation out. And then again at that top, that cladded 4th floor, showing the deeper eave on the rear elevation covering the corridor. And then it shows how it's pulled back along Garden Street. The other thing to note is we're maintaining the tree that is along the garden frontage, but we are eliminating one of the larger trees in the back corner of the alley, but we've worked with the neighbor extensively, created a separate application and plan. He approved this design, so these are the trees we're replacing. So the one now is we're replacing with 4 along that alley and actually continuing back to his property. So we have that drawing exhibit as well, if you'd like to see it. Okay, let's get to Katie.
All right. So I think the most important thing at this base level is the trees. So along the Haley side, if you start kind of in that top corner, we have a cassia tree. The top left right there, yeah, is a cassia tree. Wanted to try and get some canopy trees. Around the corner, page north, we have some king palms to help with that elevation and varying in size. And then along Haley, we also peppered in some more king palms. And then we're actually adding another street tree, a Mexican fan palm. There's one that is currently existing to the north, so we're just bringing that down. And then as you wrap the corner of garden, where we have some more king palms varying in height, just as Ryan showed with the elevations. And at the entries, we're trying to get in some pots and decorative plants. Currently, we're showing a kumquat tree or just something to kind of highlight the entrances. And then we are also adding new street trees. You can see all along garden, so that also will work with the elevation. And per the city arborist, we did coordination there. It has to be brachychiton, so that's what those are. They're across the street as well, so that'll be a nice mirror of the street. And then on either side of the garage entry, we're doing angel trumpet tree, just a small tree to add, once again, some sort of differentiation to the palms, but it needs to be small because of those sight visibility triangles. And then, as Ryan mentioned, that alley down 221 East Haley Street, we coordinated with the neighbor and we're doing stenocarpus. So we're removing an acacia. We're keeping the Chinese elm that's on the street side, and we're replacing with 4 24-inch box stenocarpus, and we went back and forth with that neighbor to coordinate the tree and the size and all of that. And then as far as hardscape, we're updating the street based on the pedestrian master plan, and the vehicular entry is going to be permeable pavers where we can, and the pedestrian is also permeable pavers, and we're doing the hydroflow paver that doesn't have a gap. So it's a really nice permeable paver. And then I'll quickly go through the other levels that are pretty minimal. The second floor just has this planter, and we're doing a raised planter and some sort of larger tree on either side. We have a dragon tree shown right now and pavers as well. And then the rooftop is our other scope of work. So we're doing a green roof, so the live roof kind of bordering the edge there to provide a buffer and also some more greenery, and then some raised, we're showing olive trees right now in raised planters. And then once again, some dragon trees we're trying to get in the live roof area in a raised planter, and just creating these kind of nooks to sit. And we're varying the paving with, pedestal paving. So we have wood and we also have concrete pavers. And then to separate the main area that we're looking at right now versus the private areas, we've also kind of looked at varying the paving, and then also some water features to kind of help with sound. And if you want to zoom out, Ed, we have, I'm sure you've looked at these before, but we have some visioning images kind of also to support both the rooftop and the ground level with the vision. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's hop to the photo sims really quick.
Do you want to look at details first?
Oh, we have those too. Do I have the time?
No, but how many details do you have?
Just a handful. I'll just cover the sheet.
Yeah, let's
and
go
we
through it.
can. So we've begun the detailing. So what we have on this sheet is the typical opening details, which we want to show where we've furred out. This is the 2 main facades along Haley and Garden. We've double framed the walls so you can see we're up to, you're a little past a foot, 1 foot 2, to create nice deep openings, and so it matches in our balconies. We have their inset so we can have a rail that spans that opening. There's some reference imagery there. So we're starting to cover all the basics. And then I know this came up in the board's comments. We're still working on aesthetic details. We're studying, we're testing materials, we're pricing materials. So we'd like to come back and talk about those more specifically once we have a confidence this is an approved project. But you can just see we're just beginning that process of some of the more artistic or articulated ones. So again, the idea behind the decorative playful screen, which, you know, is a nod to the traditional Spanish exterior blinds, so we're making a riff off of that. And then also the main entry screens, we'd like to move away from, we're showing horizontal banding, we'd like to get something more balanced between traditional and that. So we're working on it more, so we'd love to come back and show more of that detail, to get a little more traditional into some of those components. Here's a quick rendered view. So it shows, now that we've pulled back the eave of the abusivo, it sets back. Yes, there's something different and interesting sitting on top, but I think people read the 3 stories as the original building. So we have this. Now let's hop to the Sims really quick. So there's 3 views. Chair Anderson, you asked, I believe, for this corridor down to Haley, but we took the opportunity to do 3 from here, from Garden in the corner. So this is the existing, then we show the model placed in the sim as a second, and then we add landscape, so as a third. So these are all appropriately sized. Landscape there, and then next. Looking at garden, there's SB Cast and the trees, so let's go to massing. And then the last view, and the trees you can see are very important here, continuing the street tree, really bring that scale back down and continuous, especially if we keep that one on our corner, which we were proposing to do. And then Sim 3, the most visible is kitty corner to the project. So there's the 3 stories in its glory, and then with the landscape, it again brings more of that scale. And again, I think we proposed trees 15 years out of growth or so. So I believe that concludes. And Ed, anything else to cover?
No, I think that covers it. We're here, yeah, for PDA, and love to get your comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's open public comment, please.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I have no slips, but if anyone wishes to speak, please fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving, so I will move on to next virtual comment. I do not at this time see any hands raised for virtual comment, so that will close virtual comment. And for this particular item, we did not receive any written correspondence, so I will turn this back over to you, Chair Anderson.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we'll go to the board with questions. Board Member 6, would you like to start?
Sure. Chair Moore, Chair Anderson, sorry. There is several, we commented about shortening the penthouse overhang on the garden side. And I'm confused on what you actually ended up, some of the renderings show one thing and da-da-da. What's the dimension of that?
We're at elevations. So that actually there. So the top left section. So Mr. 6, we can kind of go around these. So the model.
So that's the real one there?
Yeah, the model is the accurate one, so you can see where are we here?
So it's the shorter overhang on the right?
Yeah, so to the left is the neighbor to our rear.
And what's that?
And then that is the top penthouse unit, so that side is the deeper eave. And then so I
The
don't have
shallower
it.
eave is what, how much?
I don't know if we can measure here. I think it's like
8,
12 inches.
Okay, thanks. You mentioned this, I was probably asleep when you were doing this, but does the gray, you said there was a stone plinth that wraps
Yep.
Is that the gray?
Yeah,
So that's, what material is that?
We'd like it to be like a honed stone. We were showing originally concrete, and maybe this board can weigh in, but we'd like to elevate that to like a honed limestone or something a little,
Honed limestone,
or like
okay.
a sandstone cut cleaner, something warmer and
Okay.
sandier in
All
color.
right. So if we could go to your rendered, yeah. West elevation, the end one where the new plantings are against your neighbor to the.
The alley.
Yeah. East. Why can't, the faux, why can you have one real window and then have to have other faux windows? It's not a
Different-
fire-driven, fire setback?
Board Member 6, yes, it can't be a real window.
Well, that one was the studio, yeah. At great expense it could be, so we were considering it, but the rest of them was the stair
So
circulation
you're
out.
proposing fiberglass, is that what you're saying?
That would be the only way, correct.
Yes, okay. And how deep is the recess for the faux windows?
We don't have that detail quite yet, but in that wall, in the past, when we've done them, it often ends up as a reveal of an inch or so is typically what we can build out.
Okay. And then I think there's gray on the south elevation. What's that gray in your yeah, right there, that next to the.
So that would be the same stone cladding.
Really?
Base that would come around. We would bring it all the way around up
Okay.
the alley and turn the corner here.
All right. And maybe this dives into comments, but did you consider horizontal siding as opposed to vertical siding on your upper penthouse?
Yes, we
Practicalities or
were looking
aesthetics?
at, it was aesthetic driven, especially it potentially made sense when our screens were going to be horizontal like we showed it, but I think we all liked, it's just an aesthetic driven decision that we like the verticality of it. Because it's so long and low and simple, it kind of felt like a nice counterpoint to have a texture running against that.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, Vice Chair Whalen.
I'll pick up where Member 6 left off. Did you, and I may have been sleeping too, did you mention a material for the vertical cladding on the fourth floor?
Wood siding.
Wood.
Yeah.
And then the panels above the entryways, also wood,
yeah.
but those are horizontal, so
That,
at least,
that's the placeholder we
Right
showed
now.
before, but we'd like to move to a more maybe gridded traditional panel system.
All
So
right.
that's what we have a little more work to
and
do on
then
that.
the same on the rollout screens, these are thought to be wood at
Yep.
this point.
Yeah.
All right. Could you go to your plan, please? There was a number of cross-hatchings on the ground floor plan. I may not have gone in closely enough to understand what each one were, but yes, if you can zoom in on the entry vestibule, there's a long band of cross-hatching. What is that indicating?
You'll see two. So the one along the entry vestibule, and you see that right at the door, it says 83 square feet. And so this is the variable setback calculation. So on the left is where we're encroaching by that amount, and then as you move to the, on the right, there's a certain amount that we're pushing backwards, which I mentioned, and you calculate, and then likewise, you can use the whole corner, so we show the same around on Haley, so that's a calculation.
Very easy to understand. Thank you. And then for Ms. Klein, could you go to the side elevation where the firewheel trees are? It looks like a very narrow planter. Do you have a dimension on that? And how close does that put the trunk to the building?
I think you have the actual plan for this, if you scroll down, that has more of the specifics and dimensions of everything. So there's a swing gate.
So it's
yeah.
2.6 planter width and then less than that.
I didn't realize that planter was so small. It's going to be tight, as you know, I'm sure. Let's see, plant palette-wise, are you comfortable with the Brugmansia being highly poisonous? Are we talking about the same plant?
Yeah, I mean, they're all over Santa Barbara.
But not right on the sidewalk where people
yeah.
can touch them and
Yeah, I mean, we can.
kids can
we
pick up the
look at-
flowers.
Yeah, we can look at that if that is a concern.
Well, I think your owners might be, liability-wise, might be a little bit concerned, but
Yeah.
it's a beautiful plant, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but that close to the public way, I'm kind of concerned about it, but,
Yeah, we can take a look at that.
okay. And then, I like the use of the stenocarpus because it's upright. The first thing I saw with the I'm asking a question now. Do you think that the cassia is going to give you the height, the verticality at that location that you want? I mean, you're talking about a 4-story building here. Are
Yeah,
you comfortable with that?
it was more of, it's a good enough size, like, it can get to up to like 15, 20.
20 feet.
Yeah, and just having the variety in size was the idea there, and then it's a very Santa Barbara tree, so
It is.
palette-wise, it felt good for the area.
Okay. I mean, as opposed to, I'm not suggesting this be the plant, but like a Callistemon viminalis, which is upright, has that cascading red flowers. It's pretty too, but anyway, just a thought. When I first
Yeah.
looked at it, I just thought, is it giving you that kind of height? But I guess that's not a question, but, sorry. Close enough. That's all I have, thanks.
Board Member Noon.
Oh, questions?
Okay, Board Member Sovereign.
Yeah, can you show the simulation that showed sort of the north, the north elevation? So not that one, not that one. There we go. I know that you were talking about the faux windows being there because you got sort of restrictions because of fire regulations, but then it's possible to have real windows with fiberglass. And I was just wondering, when I look at it from this perspective, and I imagine when I was looking at the watercolored elevation, that it just seems like a bit of a drive-in screen. And have you put more thought into considering like how you could break this up some more? Because I imagine if I was just driving a little further or walking a little further down the street, I'd see this giant white wall. And you've done such a great job breaking up the other facades that I was just curious if you've considered putting a little more effort into seeing what you can do with this side.
Good question. So when considering this elevation in particular, so we kind of designed first where the project addresses the streets, then the alley. So this is really the one side that we're zero lot line. And so we always have to think, there's a couple things. Existing context, it's quite stark, right? The little cottages that are there now, it's a very dramatic shift. Like you can see if it was any other 2-story project, I think that would be enough to alleviate. And then what we do know is the next project that happens there, which will be a project very similar to the project we have. So in doing so, we actually also consider, it's like we try, if we think projects are going to be side by side, we don't want to artificially create these funny gaps down the streetscape. So it's kind of a push and pull. So we don't disagree that it's a stark contrast at this point, but we think we're kind of leaning into the future that the next project, it'll feel appropriate.
That's all I have for questions.
Okay, so since we're on this elevation, is there an opportunity to add another vertical palm tree or planting closer to the trellis, kind of in that, right before the stair tower?
So I believe we do have palms
Yeah.
around that corner.
Okay, so it'll help
Actually.
kind of with that. And then the little, are those vents or are those like scuppers that I'm seeing, the little black squares?
We think they're going to be a decorative element. At the roof deck, it's most likely a scupper, but we were just sort of adding that. If you see that on the garden too, we wanted to
Yeah.
continue some little decorative element that might match, just sort of a little little exclamation point over the fenestration.
And contrary to what we just reviewed previously, it might help with this elevation to introduce like a vertical reveal or some kind of plaster joint, maybe to help between the elevator shaft and the stair or something, to help with that elevation. That's not a question, I apologize. Have you considered introducing tree wells to the 4 trees in the alley without interrupting the driveway?
No, that is something we can consider because we did coordinate on that size and I had to fight for the 30 inches, so.
Okay. And then on this elevation, but if we could look at the plan or the actual elevation drawing, is everything in plane or are the different massing, is the roof deck pushed back on the second floor? Or in between?
First floor, no. So
Okay.
those were scoring,
Okay.
again, trying to simulate 3 separate facades. Then the second and third, yes, that pushes back.
Okay. All right. And have you considered any lighting on the 4th floor or what that might be? Any landscape lighting? Are you guys proposing that or?
Nothing yet. We had some visioning images. There was a wall we wanted to maybe do some lighting on and.
But nothing like hanging overhead or string lights or?
No, typically in our projects, the roof decks, we rely on step lights kind of
Yep.
around the perimeter. In
Okay.
this case, we have a lot of green, we're gonna have to look at that because
Okay.
we kind of have quite a bit of distance to the perimeter parapet wall, so we might have some inboard. We have enough probably building to have step lighting and then in the overhangs, but we want to minimize the light and even just any outboard lighting is code minimum.
Yeah, right.
We don't
Okay.
want anything else.
Okay. All right. I think those are my only questions. Any follow-up questions? Okay, let's go to comments. All right, board member 6, let's go.
Yes, the first comment is, I think, appreciate your response to our comments. I think it's a very successful project. I think, you know what, this is an example of where massing of this sort is acceptable because the Haley Street is so skinny. It's kind of a, like Riggs is building, I can't remember what street it's on, but because it's so skinny in one dimension, that it's acceptable. So I like the proportions of the whole thing. I think it's very good, the changes on the ground floor. You didn't quite get fully separate bike entry, but I think it's, you know, it moved a little bit that way. But I think that all those ground floor changes are very good. I really appreciate the significant setback with garden areas on the active areas on the roof gardens and so forth. Significant and get people away from that street elevation and enhance it with peak over vegetation. You know, I still, you know, I was the one that mentioned the vertical siding in the little areas of the recess, and I was almost ready to go with that if the siding on the penthouse was also, it would, you know, in my opinion, I think you're going for a kind of semi-contemporary look up there, and the horizontal siding would really make it sing and relate with your vertical siding on your other places. So just to think about it, I think that you cut the eave on the garden side back too much. I think that you should get a little more heavy. And what would probably help also is if you really did a significant shadow line, breaking up the fascia itself, so it, you know, had, you know, again, stronger horizontal lines than what I see in, I think I saw just a very flat, boxy fascia. Very, yeah, if you could get more, the most recesses out of those faux windows. And I feel like, for instance, this elevation here, they're just, and especially shows on the hard rendered elevations, they're just a little bit random. You know, why are some arched and some aren't? And if, for instance, like the grouping that you have above the gray area here, you know, that's a group that's less random. It makes a statement. Maybe the two windows that are cascading down that broader white elevation there, if they were grouped similarly in the same way, it could help. Oh, just another minor thing, if we go to the the floor plan for the fourth, the one with a little trellis above the balcony. Yeah, right there. Can we go down? Yeah. If you could, one of my pet peeves is having the trellis without any overhangs to the trellis. If you could move that corner column, still staying along the upsheet wall, but move it back with the with your beam going out to that column, and then you could afford to have more trellis overhang. Somehow massage that column to where you don't lose your floor area, but take advantage of getting a more overhang to both your beam and your trellis members. That's it. Nice project.
Vice Chair Whalen.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I will agree with one point and disagree with another, with member 6. The disagreement is with the direction of the paneling on the 4th floor. I think that vertical is a correct choice to contrast with the same or similar material over the entryways. And Mr. Mills, I'm impressed that you remembered my term, the abusivo. I think this changing of the paneling direction actually accentuates the idea that, you know, perhaps it was a later addition. It's different from the rest of the building, and it doesn't bother me to sort of imply there was a history to the building. The point I would agree with Mr. 6 are the surrounds, the recessed openings. Now, the rendering that you showed us, however quickly sketched it was, made it look really deep. I think that's successful if you can add a surround on one elevation to make it appear deeper. You probably can't do that on the lot line unless you really want to mess with the inspector. Oh, we're only going an inch over our line. But however, it does seem to me that if they were deeper and that you really, the implied use of a building or the life of building, they used to be open and they got walled up, which is very common in the life of a building. So I would support you doing so. And then the poor firewheel tree, I'm just not so certain that there is enough room in there. However, I have seen a magnolia tree expalliate against a wall in a very narrow planter. Of course, I'm implying that there's a great deal of care and maintenance, but you might consider a large espalier along that wall. I actually saw a magnolia done that way. So those are my comments. I think it's an admirable design, and perhaps it is ready for project design approval at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Black.
Yeah, I'd agree with the previous comments. I think it's a thoughtful, well-designed project, and I'm particularly attracted to the potential detailing that you've indicated on your renderings and such. But and then I think my questions sort of reflect some thoughts that Katie will have relative to plant selection. But I think for the most part, the plant palette is quite nice. So that's all. It's quite nice.
Okay, Board Member Noon.
Just briefly, I too agree with what's previously been said. I think you've done a great job of responding to our comments. And even beyond that, supportive of the gray material that you've increased the location and size of that, whatever that ends up being. I think that's a good add. The windows, again, I agree with the. You can only do what you can do with the recess, but maybe the size could vary some as they go up. And then I was also supportive of the horizontal siding, but you're the designer, so we'll leave it at that.
Okay, Board Member Soffren.
I don't really have much to say. I think you guys kind of said it all. Other than just, I know that we're talking about that one elevation, again, the north elevation. Maybe you know something I don't know about the neighbor developing, but I guess I've always sort of been told to not count on that being a guarantee, and I think there's some great opportunity, but I think your project's beautiful as designed. Like, it's spectacular.
Yeah, I really don't have a whole lot to add. I think it's really well designed. I think you could study reducing the width of stair one. If we're looking at it right here, it looks like you could maybe minimize that to help break up the facade. I would be curious on the stone. I think that's gonna really be, and how that interacts with your material palette. Like we're seeing gray, but you're talking about warm, almost yellow, and so I think we should study that as you move forward. I would look at the garage entry, since we can't put a door on, and you're gonna be using stone. I would study the surround of the entry, and maybe there's some opportunity for a nice detail that kind of mimics your entry at the corners, or doesn't mimic, I don't know. And back to these faux windows, maybe you can add like a plaster sill or something too, and just give it a little bit something else. But I would be in support of project design approval. How does to come back with, obviously, full material board, all the details. How does the board feel?
Yes.
Yes.
I would support that.
Great. Who wants to make a motion? Okay, fine, I'll do it. I will make a motion for project design approval, indefinite continuance back to the full board for project design approval with the following comments. First of all, we thank you for responding to our previous comments. The board finds that this is a admirable project, and we look forward to the finished details and how they come together. Number two, study can you help me with the direction? Is this northeast corner? This is north, so southwest corner. Southwest corner, massing, planting, any further detail study to reduce the appearance of the bland elevation. Further details of the faux window and more articulation of locations and thoughtfulness of groupings and size and shapes. Let's see. continued study, or not study, provided detail of the fascia at the 4th floor. And you can extend a little bit further the overhang on Garden Street elevation. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say for now, and then in discussion, we can add whatever else. But we can do the compatibility findings. All right, number 1. This project is consistent with the design guidelines of the urban design guidelines and the Haley-Milpas design guidelines. At number 2, it's compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood. Number 3, it's appropriate in the size, mass, bulk, height, and scale. Number 4, there are no adjacent landmarks or historic resources that we know of. Number 5, this does not impede the public views of the ocean or mountains, and it does have appropriate use of open space and landscaping.
I can second that motion.
Okay, so under discussion, does anyone have anything to add to the motion?
Chair Anderson, my comment on repositioning the column at the southeast corner balcony with the trellises.
Oh, yes.
To produce more overhang to the trellis and beam elements.
Could you repeat that?
Yes,
again,
okay,
please?
how do I locate that
South.
the southwest private balcony, at the southwest private balcony, reposition the column to allow more overhang to the trellis and the beam elements.
Yes.
And do we want to let go the horizontal versus vertical siding? Because
I
I
think
don't
so.
want to.
Defer to the design.
Defer to the designer. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're good.
Okay, we're ready for motion. Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign. Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thanks, folks.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, we're gonna open and oh, yes, thank you. There is an announcement, thank you, for an appeal period, 10-day appeal period. Usually they do. I know. Okay, we're gonna open and close item 3. So we're gonna open 523 West Gutierrez, which has been postponed to a date certain of February 5th. So we will now close that item and take a 2-minute recess.
has been reconvened, and we can turn it over to the board to open the item.
Okay, and I think Board Member Noon has something to say.
I just wanted to note that I had a conflict with this next project, so I'll abstain.
Thank you. All right, so item 4 is 621 West Mitchell-Torrena Street. This is a continued item for project design approval. Proposal to demolish the existing 2-story, 4,000 square foot medical and professional office building and construct a 3-story, 11,327 square foot medical and dental clinic for SB Neighborhood Clinic's new West Side Clinic located on a 10,454 square foot lot. The second and third floors will be above ground floor parking garage containing 11 parking spaces, including 1 ADA parking space and 12 bicycle spaces. The project received Planning Commission approval for the following applications: a CUP to allow a state licensed medical clinic to operate in the CR Commercial Restricted Zone, a development plan for non-residential floor area, and a parking modification to allow fewer parking spaces than required. Project design approval is requested. Project requires compliance with Planning Commission Resolution number 016-22, project compatibility findings, and urban design guidelines. Well, we last saw this project February 22nd of 2022. Do we have anything from staff, or we can get to?
No staff planner is present today
Okay.
for the item. Staff does not have anything to add, and we have the minutes from the last hearing.
Oh, great.
And we have the PC approved minutes too, so. we
Yeah,
can go
if they
through some
have
of those.
anything we need to know, we should.
I will get back to you on the PC approval, if there's any conditions that the board should be aware of today, but we can go through the minutes. And if there is or are conditions that need to be notified to the board, I will make sure to reconvene on that.
Because I think the compatibility findings were made, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
By Planning Commission?
Well, no, by you.
By us.
So-
Prior to the planning commission.
Excuse me, was that, we usually do 2 steps. One is informal.
Right.
That it appears to be, and one is a formal.
So comment number 6 here states that they were preliminarily made, so they were spoken to but not formally made.
Get a second bite at the apple.
Okay, well, welcome back. If you guys could introduce yourselves, you'll have 15 minutes to walk us through all the changes, or if there are changes, and then any of the important details. And if we don't get to them then, we'll get to them in questions.
Okay. Brian Cornell?
I'm Mahdi Ashrafian. I'm the CEO of Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinic.
Nicole Horn with CDMLA Landscape Architect.
Stephen Wen, Esabay Architect, with the medical planner and medical architect.
I'm going to let Mahdi wanted to make a few opening remarks, and then we'll get into the design.
Thank you, Brian. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. So thank you all for having us here again. As I mentioned, my name is Mahdi. I'm the new CEO of Santa Barbara Neighborhood Connect. So I don't believe I was here for the first hearing. So we are, as you know, we are a local nonprofit organization dedicated to serving the most vulnerable here in Santa Barbara community. We are very excited to continue moving forward with our project here on West Side. Since our last meeting, we have hired SWA architects to help us create a functional interior program. Our team has spent many hours and many meetings working with SWA to create a floor plan that we are actually very proud of, and we think will serve our best, will help us help the patients in the best way that we can. We have continued working with Brian and his team to ensure this clinic fits within our city and fits well within the city and specifically the west side. So I just want to thank you for the time you are taking to review our plans. And at this point, I will just let Brian show you what we have designed so far.
So just explaining this all further, we actually sort of inherited this some time ago after another architect had done the programming. the reality is the programming for the clinic has evolved and changed since that initial effort. But we were dealing with a specific footprint, and frankly, we've always known that this project was about fitting 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. So Stephen's team has done an amazing job basically taking it from the point that we had the Planning Commission approval, working closely with the clinic, and that's taken some time to make the program fit. And in the process, needless to say, some things didn't necessarily work out. So that's what we want to show you. We've worked very, very hard together to make sure that this is as close to what the Planning Commission approved as possible. I think, Nicole, if you will go really starting with if you'll run to the elevations real quick, I think that's the best way to jump into this. What we've done here is shown the approved project per the Planning Commission and then where we are today. The most significant change is that we've had to add a couple of feet to the height of the building to make all of the functions work, primarily, frankly, because of the plumbing that is at the third floor for the dental suite has created impacts to where it was just really critical for us to increase that height. So the two-story massing of the building has remained the same, but that third-story element has popped up. Essentially, that difference you see from the top of the roof to the parapet is really what that delta is. So that's the most significant change. How much? I'm pretty sure it's 2 feet. Is that right, Stephen? So that is the difference. And if you'll scan back out again, Nicole, you can kind of see where these are aligned perfectly, so you can see what that difference is. And we also have three-dimensional views to look at, so you can see that really that impact is pretty negligible. The other most significant thing is just the window patterns that you see on the two street elevations. Because of how the space plan laid out, we no longer had the need for the uniformity at the upper third floor level for windows, and then at the second floor we basically had to reposition them just to conform with that space plan. And I will tell you, I can speak for Stephen that, you know, this is so tight that the every little inch mattered in terms of achieving the goals of the space plan. And as Marty mentioned, you know, they're really, really happy with that. So that's what we have been massaging. So that's what, I would ask you all to look at. I will tell you the one thing that, we looked at, as you can see, that on the north elevation, particularly on the street side, on the Mitchell-Terena side, we had these screen elements, or decorative screen elements that were above the windows, and those are not showing on this. We have, if you can go to that one exhibit that we provided later, we have studied that, and if you all think that it is necessary, we can add that back, but it becomes just really a decorative element that would be integrated into the window. And that, frankly, is kind of where we were realizing we were going to be when we were back in the earlier design stages. So that would be some sort of a decorative grille that would integrate with the window system. And so we want you to comment on that. Obviously, detailing is going to be critical on this. We're not attempting to give you details now, but the cornice detail at the top, exactly what the awning element at the entry, how it works, all of these things are going to be important details, and we welcome your comments on it. But sort of as Marty mentioned, what's really important for us right now to keep all the consultants moving on the project, that we get project design approval and get your blessing on this slight height increase, and able to continue to move forward with, additional design review and then ultimately final. So I think that's really what I have. Again, we can look at, I know there are renderings that are a couple of sheets into the set. I'm not sure what, I think they are. There you go. So that kind of, so this is obviously renderings from the latest model, so this indicates what the height difference is. And, you know, this concept for this third floor stepping back has always been to respect kind of the scale of this neighborhood, which is really predominantly one story with a little bit of two-story, and so we wanted to keep that scale appropriate, so having that third floor back and a darker feature, almost as if it has been added to this little historic neighborhood building, has always been our goal. Maybe go ahead and thumb through those additional renders. Yeah, so they're just, that just gives you some views. So I think with that, we'll have you guys ask questions and we can respond and get through this.
Should I go through the landscape?
Thank you.
Yes.
I always forget about you, don't I?
Oh, everybody forgot about me. So this is real minor, the landscape change. What we've added is the third floor plan since the last time you saw us, which is a green roof, so green all the way across Mitchell-Trina side, and then the almond side. We've also lost one of the proposed olive trees. We had 5, now we have 4. The 5th one was here, and that planter just got smaller, and it's adjacent to the driveway, so I think it makes sense to not try to squeeze a tree in there. But overall, we still have a total of, I think, 9 proposed trees, including the parkway, so it's still a net gain of like +1. So we feel pretty good about that change. And then I think that's it.
So maybe we could
Oh, we
just-
added 2 bike parking spaces here at the front. So these are for the public. There's one on either side of the front entry. I mean, 1 rack, that's 2 spaces per rack, so 4 spaces total. That's it for landscape.
Great, thank you. We will open public comment.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I have no slips. However, if you wish to speak, please fill one out and bring it to me. I do not see anyone in the audience making a move to do so, so we will move on to virtual comment. At this time, I see no hands raised for virtual comment, so that will close virtual comment, and we will go on to written correspondence. And for this particular item, we did not receive any written correspondence, so at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll move into questions from the board, and we'll start with Board Member Sofrin.
Hi, let's see. My first question is on the street facade there where you're talking about the grills and you've got that light pattern. If you kept the grills, I don't know if you want to draw that up. Have you considered playing with that middle mutton? Just, I don't know, I think it would look good without the grills, to tell you the truth, but if you kept the grills, I just think that balance.
Why don't we go to the elevation without the grills so we can look at it? Because we'd prefer to save money and not do the grills.
I mean, I think the rendering shows nicely without the grills as well. But right, am I missing? I thought one of them
Yeah,
didn't.
so what were you thinking, that we would change that proportion of
I
those?
think when I look at the architectural elevation, you've got the grills and then you've got that horizontal element, and maybe if you keep the grills to lower that horizontal break in the light.
I see, yeah.
That was one thought. And I'm
Okay.
kind of curious looking at this perspective too. I'm assuming, like, I don't know if we want to look at the roof plan, but first here, we've got that guardrail up on top that's sort of a screening element on the roof.
Yes.
All the way up at the top. Does it need to be that tall?
You know, that's a good question. I would say that it only needs to be as tall as it would, you know, from a real human perspective standpoint, screen that equipment. So I think, Stephen, we could look at lowering that to make sure that it's screening the offending equipment without being too tall.
Yeah.
No problem if we can lower it. However, we wanted to make sure that if we do lower it, that the viewpoint from the street level, it will still maintain the screening of the mechanical units.
Yeah, could we skip to the roof
Elevation.
plan?
Or the roof plan or the?
The roof plan?
There.
Because, yeah, my question is, with mechanical equipment being placed, is that where it's gonna, like, has there been a mechanical engineer who's figured out where all this needs to go, or is it sort of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I may, for the third floor, all the units are designed, intended for the units to punch straight through the roof into the third floor. But for the second floor, we have a dedicated mechanical shaft that allows plumbing as well as mechanical, especially on the third floor. Some of the vacuum, the compressed air for the dental needs to come from the lower level in the basement. So as a result, there has to be a doghouse, so to speak, for the ducts to come up through the shaft and therefore connected to the unit on the rooftop. So there's a real gymnastic there that we've been trying to play with, compounded by the fact that this is a steel frame building. Some of the beams are pretty deep, so as a result, you see them getting spread out all over, so that will allow us to distribute the air evenly through the third floor.
Okay. That's all I have for questions.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Black?
I have no questions.
Okay, Vice Chair Whalen?
Yes, thank you. On that same point, we're looking at this drawing here. Could you, with your cursor, if Nicole, you're the conqueror of the world, show us where that screen is
Yes.
on that drawing?
Yep.
That's the screen, that's what I thought. Now, isn't, I see photo arrays here, isn't this at odds with your proposed green roof at the third floor? Am I seeing multiple
The green
floors?
roof is at the
Second
at the
floor.
roof of the second floor, but at the third floor level.
All right, I'll just accept that. So could you talk a little bit more about what makes it green as a green roof?
Sure, let me go to the detail on our landscape set. It's not,
This is why I wanted you to do this, Nicole.
I know, sorry, I'm just a millennial, not Gen Z. So here are the details on the left side here. It's a standard green roof module made by Live Roof, so it's 4.5 inches above the roof assembly here, and these panels then grow together and they form like a mat. So we have, I don't think we've spec'd the plants yet at this level, but now we're into DD, so we've got the plant spec'd now. So what we're planning is a mix of sedums to cover, and then some tall grasses that would be like 12 to 18 inches, the Dianella.
So nothing that would be seen from the street? Nothing that would pop up above the parapet level?
No.
No.
I mean, the intent of that, obviously, it's for stormwater, but also it is really a nice feature for folks who are in the dental
Right, they can
clinic
see out the
to-
windows.
to look out.
That meets my assumption. Thank you. That's my only question.
Board Member Six?
Yes, thank you, Chair Anderson. Did we not discuss on earlier versions that the height of the overpass and viewing, you know, the peekaboo of the mechanical above screen, the overpass was so far away or blocked by trees, and it was not a significant view that would concern us with the height of the screen versus the height of the units?
I think we may have, but I agree with what you're saying. I mean, there is significant, as you come over that
Yeah.
overpass, you know,
don't
there's
have
so many
any
trees on the street, you really can't see it until you're
That's
almost
what I
there.
thought, that's what I thought, yeah, okay.
So I think it really would be from the street,
Yeah.
across the street.
That's what I
looking
think,
up.
that's my recollection. Again, there's no parapet on that green third floor?
No, well, again, the parapet is at the second floor, right?
Yes,
So
I
there is a parapet there,
But the
which
green-
is the parapet that has that cornice molding that we're going to want to carefully detail,
Right.
so that,
But the green box does not have a parapet?
correct.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, it has a small parapet just from a roofing standpoint,
Yes,
but not
okay.
much.
So if we do get solar, we'll see the solar as much as,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing, that
Yeah.
there's enough parapet, I think it would be really hard to see those panels
okay.
from anywhere.
And I'm glad we're on this elevation. It seems to be, I don't know how far you've thought about the screen material itself, but it seems there's, like here, there's some kind of a transparency or translucency, like where, thank you for being honest and showing a white unit behind that. Can you explain that further? How transparent or what you're thinking there?
I think that we were thinking that it would just help sort of graduate this, so it just sort of starts to dissolve into the sky, and that the transparency sort of helps it do that instead of it being an opaque
Okay.
material. Because I think with, some reasonable gap in that transparent screen, you're really never going to.
The impact of the
sense
machines
the
beyond,
movement, yeah.
machines, okay. And could you go, I think the recesses on the windows on the ground floor are significant? What are the recesses,
go
the
to the
returns, and
plan.
also the returns on the third floor? How recessed are the all
Well,
the
on the
windows?
third floor, they're not that recessed, because I don't know that they need to be necessarily with that sort of parterre with the, that we're doing on the third floor. But on the second and first floor, we do have the thicker walls to create that recess.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you.
Something happened.
I don't think I have any follow-up questions, so let's move into comments.
You want to go back to the
Do you guys have any follow-up
elevations?
questions? No.
I just have one small follow-up question. I don't know much about the green roof, but what's the maintenance of something like that? I mean, if it's something that's growing and access getting up there, I mean, how does that happen?
Let me go to the plan. So, generally you could access it, I think, through this mechanical area here for maintenance. What we typically see on these is we have these gravel bands around the exterior. That's where we put irrigation, and there's some ability to walk on top of the modules. You don't walk often on top of them, enough that they'll grow back afterward. But usually when we see them in like a closed condition like this, they're pretty minimally maintained, and what you're going out there to do is like fix the irrigation if it broke. And when these modules, if a plant dies or they need to be replaced, the module gets replaced as a whole. You're not trying to put like a new plant into a 4-inch medium.
Like a tray.
Right, a tray.
Thanks.
Okay, Board Member 6, would you like to start with comments?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the reality of your task, the 5 pounds. I thought it was 6 pounds, but this is probably 5, right? So I can see it going higher. But even last time I was concerned with the sophistication of the third floor green box, and you know, even now, we're going to see a little bit more, 2 feet more of it. I think that it's just so residentially detailed, you know, standard residential hardy board corner, you know, trim around the windows, the horizontal siding is, what I'm trying to say is, I think there needs to be a lot more sophistication in the application of that material. Like maybe a metal recessed corner, parapet, maybe a corner metal recessed corner instead of the standard vertical boards. I think that, like on the question of the lower floor, ground floor grillage, I think with the added height, I think it would be important to have some kind of faux, maybe a opaque window panel above each of those windows for, you know, another 2 feet or something to give an elegance to the windows and to cut up that what's getting to be a significant header height above those windows, I think. And also, I think that when you start to detail this, the hardy boards are certainly not going to span that long. And I think, again, a sophistication, maybe you make a statement of a stop and start of the hardy boards with a recessed black something that really says, yeah, this is the organization of this. Maybe it's, I know that you have different amounts and rhythms of windows on different sides. So one vertical, I was about to think, you know, that if you had a vertical statement up each side of each window all the way up, but maybe in the middle or something. Maybe somehow there's a way to sophisticate and make more sophisticated this material, because I think that it's a lovely building. I think it deserves, and it's going to be, and that green box is going to be visible. So I think it should be sophisticated, and as the lower is, the last thing about that is I think that between, you know, when I spoke last time of shadow lines, you know, I think that a significant horizontal middle awning above the window and below my suggested opaque panels, you know, sticking out at least 18 inches or something to give it a lot of shadow and play, would be another, just a suggestion of how to make this more sophisticated. I didn't quite understand Mr. Sofrin's comment, but I think that the grills that you have on the lower floor, I think those windows should be raised slightly, again, with some opaque element, but you don't need to have two horizontal mullions. I mean, just raise it and then have an opaque, you know, about 18 inches or something higher to make get those windows at least up to the height of the entry element that we had before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you're saying get rid of the mullion, the horizontal mullion we have here, and
Yeah,
just rely on that upper detail.
Yeah, whatever it is, whether it could be another horizontal mullion with clear glass below and opaque panel above, or, you know, whatever. But I think that I think there's just a little bit too much header on the lower floor. I think that is, 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 I think you could, a very elegant project with those comments, addressing some of those comments.
Okay, Vice Chair Whalen.
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. I would share Member Six's observations and perhaps reservations about the third floor, the color, the massing, at least from the views that we see here on architectural views, it looks to be kind of prominent. I wonder if there really aren't any precedents for this, are there, Mr. Kernal? I mean, this is a total see if it works thing.
Well, I mean, again, one of the precedents for me for this was Cancer Center, which was, we didn't make Cancer Center Spanish, and we used this same material, and it does blend in a lovely way into the neighborhood. And so my approach has always been to make this third story addition darker so that it recesses. I mean, forgive me, but I've even thought that black versus the green would even be more elegant for this.
Well, thank you for that response. I wonder about the color too, that perhaps the mechanical screen should also be the same color as the siding. Rather, it seems like the black that has some spacing on it is going to look much more visible, that perhaps if it were all the same material and color, granted with a different disposition, that it would be more successful. But moving on from that, I would have reservations about putting bike parking at your front door. From all of my years at the university, if you put out one parking space, you're going to get 20 bikes. And I think it just messes up your front door. As much as I appreciate you adding bike parking to it, I think you might be opening a really messy precedent. So seriously, reconsider that. As for the grills on the upper portion of the window, I think the other comments are on the right. Less is more. This is rather than putting a highly detailed sort of thingy in there, that to match the sophisticated reductive facade, that if you do less, perhaps an opaque glass or whatever it is, but whatever it is, mute it down rather than pump up a design. Thank you.
Board Member Black.
I really don't have much to add. Oops, sorry. I think it's a really well-done project as well. I'm looking at this rendering, thinking those trees are going to get a lot larger, which is going to have maybe a positive impact just in terms of anybody that's concerned about the massing. But the olive trees by themselves will get bigger, and then the stenocarpus on Mitchell terrain are probably twice the height that you're showing them there, at least, just based on what's on Mitchell terrain now. But otherwise, yeah, I think it's nicely done.
Board Member Soffern.
I think it's a great project. I really also commend the collaborative effort of the interior design with the exterior design and losing that asymmetry to accommodate that function. I think that doesn't happen enough, so that's great. I also am in agreement with Commissioner Six about just the idea of coming up with like that header space above the window on that third floor, and I feel like everyone here sort of commented that the first two stories are great. The third story seems like it could improve to come up to the level that the first two stories are at. And yeah, I'm kind of in agreement too with, I think black would look better than green, but that's all.
Okay, thanks. I'll add a couple comments. I think the main thing that everyone is saying is about the proportions of the openings on both, actually all three floors, and I think what we're suggesting, due to the amount of equipment that's necessary, is to do some kind of faux window or faux something above these windows to make it look and appear that the proportions are in keeping with the additional height, especially on the third floor. Unfortunately, I feel like the 2 feet is really unfortunate for this project, and normally 2 feet doesn't feel like it would make that much difference, but I think because the window heights didn't move with it, the proportions didn't stay the same. And so I think, just like all the other members said, elevating that third floor to a sophisticated detailing where you can give more of an indication of better proportions will definitely help that. And I don't mind the contrast of the third floor and the mechanical screen colors. I don't know if you have them the same color, I think it's just gonna make it feel even larger. And then I would also consider maybe instead of a horizontal band at the grill, maybe just a perforated metal panel as an option.
For the grill.
For the mechanical
the
screen.
mechanical screen.
Yeah. So based on the changes, yeah, the 2-foot height increase is obviously necessary. So I think, like I just said, the proportions of the openings need to mimic that and work with the additional height. The green roof is a nice addition, and okay, those are my comments. Anything further?
I have a
Yeah.
further comment and discussion about black color. There's a certain lady on the planning commission that is our liaison, and if we suggest black, she'll attack.
She'll turn white.
Yes.
You know, if I may just add, I mean, I recently went to New Zealand, and there was some really nice architecture there, but they use this black horizontal siding a lot, and I was amazed at actually how wonderful it helped the architecture just be quiet and recede. That's kind of where I really started thinking about it, but I think your comments about the elegance of that is what we need to work on. I think we can do that.
There's some nice charcoal.
Yeah.
You don't have to go
Exactly,
black.
not black.
Yeah.
There you go.
Not shiny.
Not shiny,
I
definitely.
also wanted to add a comment about the bikes. When you put bike parking right next to the door off of a walkway, you're sending the signal that it's okay and legal to ride your bike on the sidewalk, and that's clearly not the case, so be careful of the signals you're sending. Thank you.
All right, so they're here for project design approval. How is the board feeling about giving project design approval today?
Yes.
Yes? How do you feel? Yeah? You guys are good?
I think we have sincerity with the applicant to accommodate a lot of our comments, so I would think that preliminary approval is fine.
Would you like to craft the motion?
All right, so the board appreciates the design as it is reflected basically what we accepted before. We appreciate the, or we don't have, we understand the reality of having to raise the height of the third floor and its screen. And we appreciate the changes to fenestration given the demands of the internal program. We would, given the added height to the third floor, we would request that the architect raise the sophistication of the materials and detailing of the third floor to a level of the sophistication of the lower floors. In specific, where's my image? Thank you. In specific, the board would like to see a raising of the head heights of the ground floor fenestration up to the height of the entry fenestration, and that includes both windows and doors, with some kind of opaque element subtly erasing those elements. On the third floor, we'd like to see, given the raised height of the walls on all four sides, we'd like to see a similar handling of an opaque element above all the windows to reduce the head height between the window and the parapet. And also in deference to more sophistication to that third floor, we'd like to see some significant projections of horizontal metal awnings or some other elements to give some real shadow line and 3 dimension to those otherwise flat facades. We'd like to see the applicant reconsider where to locate the bike parking to separate it from the entry and the sidewalk system. And the board understands and supports the idea of a dark hue to the third floor, but not all the way to black. Isn't that a song? Fade to black or something? I think that covers it if I've missed anything.
Did,
we also,
reduction of the screening height? Did I miss that?
The reduction on the mechanical screen?
Yeah. To
well,
explore that?
yeah, I think maybe it'd be good to have some kind of section to show, from different street locations, just how low that screen can go and not affect the, would that be fair, a request? Okay. And then we could formally do the
Findings.
kind of compatibility stuff. So we find the project is compatible due to its consistency with the design guidelines for the location of the project within the city. Number 2, it's also compatible with the architectural qualities and characteristics distinctive to Santa Barbara in this particular neighborhood. Number 3, given the demands of the program and the neighborhood needs, the board is okay with the size, mass, bulk, height, and scale. And number 4, there's no adjacent landmarks or historic resources affected. Number 5, there are no public views of ocean or mountains affected. And 6, given the, again, the constraints and necessities of the program, there is appropriate amount of open space and landscaping, and especially considering the efforts for roofscape landscape.
I can second that motion.
Great. Let's take our vote.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. Chair Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen?
Yes.
Board Member Black?
Yes.
Board Member Six?
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. There's a 10-day appeal process. You can see that on the screen, and I think that's it for today, so we can adjourn our meeting for the 22nd.